Hey, DDers. I'm so glad that you could join me today.
Welcome to the Harness Your ADHD Power podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
So, are any of today's topics a challenge for you? Well, if you're like most of the adults that I know and love, then I already know that the answer is yes. And I'm curious if you've ever wondered why these are so challenging for you. I used to wonder, and I don't anymore. So let me share a little bit about what I figured out about why they can be so challenging. First, a key piece about neuroplasticity, the brain that'll continually change itself. Your brain rapidly prunes those disused circuits, and it strengthens most of the highly used circuits, which means that what you don't use, you're going to lose to a greater or lesser degree. This is really important to keep in mind. Next, I want to speak to your self-esteem for a moment. You are not a failure. Rather, the systems have failed you. The systems have failed to teach you everything that you needed to know, meaning skills, in the ways that you needed to learn so that you could have a happy, productive, and successful adult life. And it's never too late to learn the skills that are going to make that possible for you now, no matter what age you are. I really need you to pause for a moment and take this in. You are not a failure. Rather, the systems have failed you. And it's your responsibility to learn the skills, mostly executive function skills, that you're missing if you want to have a happier, more productive, and successful adult life. That's just how it is. So moving on here with a little overview of today's 3 topics. In order for you to be able to prioritize, you need to be able to see what tasks are more important at each moment and give those tasks more of your attention, energy, and time. You need to be able to focus on what's important at the expense of the lower value activities. Let me put it a little differently. In order to see what tasks are more important at each moment, you have to be present or attentive in that moment. And you need to have some means of determining the importance of each task, which to me is criteria within the context of a situation. And criteria, well, they're the principle or the standard by which you can judge or decide something. And without criteria, how could you? You also need good decision-making skills in order to effectively prioritize, and great self-regulating skills so that your emotions stay out of the entire process of prioritizing and setting criteria and making decisions. Because if you succumb to your emotions and you're ruled by them, they might try and lead you in 6 different directions, and they change throughout the day. Not the best path for a happy and productive life. And in order for you to manage yourself within time, you need to be able to sense the passing of time, where you are within time, and be able to manage yourself so that you start something without hesitation and you can finish it within the actual time allotted for that task. So here we have another complex sequence of events that you're going to need to navigate to successfully work with the asset of time. Sensing the passing of time is not possible if you're hyper-focused on something. You're in the zone, so to speak, and all time is outside of your awareness. It just is. This also means that when you're hyper-focused, you lack the awareness of where you are in time, or whether or not you need to make a transition out of a task and move on to something else. Managing yourself includes managing your emotions about what's on your plate that you have to do, as well as being able to activate yourself to go and do a task when it comes time to go do it. And this implies no procrastination. And to me, that means that you have to feel competent to start and complete the task as planned. Again, another huge, tall order. And in order for you to be consistently productive and not just busy, you need to be able to know what needs to be done that's going to move you forward in the direction of your goal. And that means that you need a goal, which is the direction you've decided to move in. And you need to know the steps that you need to take to move forward to achieve your goal. And you need to know how and when that you're supposed to take those steps. And even bigger than all of this is you need to be able to decide on a goal and what it means to set a goal and achieve a goal. And if you lack all these pieces of information, you just won't be able to be productive. You'll only be busy. I know I've covered a lot in a short time here, and I've shared this with you for a reason. I really have. I want you to understand the massive amount of skills that are needed behind the scenes, so to speak, in order to prioritize, manage yourself within time, and be consistently productive. And if you don't have all these skills yet, then the multiple failed attempts that you've had when you've been trying to do these things, there's a reason, not an excuse. Remember, I've told you before that you're not off the hook here and that you have the responsibility to meet your own needs and to get whatever skills and training you need in order to live a happier and a more productive life. Well, that hasn't changed. If you attended college, most likely they didn't train you or prepare you for your life outside of that structured environment of college life. They didn't teach you how to create or maintain a structured environment and systems once you left school. And the same is true of so many other places that we go in life. They give us the program or the information that we signed up for, but they don't have the foresight to teach us how to live a productive life once we leave them. And we need to create and maintain these systems on our own. Seriously. So after so many conversations with adults like you, I know that you want to be on time, and I know that you haven't been able to be on time for a variety of reasons, and none of them are because you lack the desire to be on time. I know that you want to be able to see which tasks need to be done first, second, and so on, and then be able to start them when you need to start them and finish them, yet you haven't been able to do that either. And again, I know it's not because of a lack of desire on your part. I know that when you think about the day ahead, you want to be productive and you want to feel proud at the end of the day for all that you've accomplished. And instead, you look at how you spent your time and you see that so much of it was busy work and not productive work on the essential things that you really, really wanted to be working on. I've seen that beat down look on so many of your faces when you share these failures with me. And it breaks my heart because I know these failed attempts only add to the negative feelings that you already have about yourself, feelings that may have been growing for years now. So what's the answer? Well, to me, it's the urgent need to learn the skills that most of us didn't learn starting way back in childhood, and the need to learn them now. I know that I didn't learn many of these skills growing up, and yet looking back, I can see what it is that saved me from being worse off than I was, and that were the job choices that I made while I was in college, because I was forced to learn many of these missing skills or become unemployed. It was kind of an immersion experience with no exits of escape unless I quit. I've since learned that all these executive function skills are interconnected, and we can't just focus on learning one if we're going to be successful in our adult life. We have to not only learn, but master them all. That is, if it's that happier and more productive adult life that we're after. And you must know by now that celebrating your wins is such an important piece of this very complex puzzle. I continually ask you about your wins and encourage you to acknowledge and celebrate them every single day because they matter so much. Every win you acknowledge and celebrate with emotional authenticity, it's literally changing your neurology, meanings, and the mindset into a positive thing. Seems like a great return on your time investment to me. And please don't shortchange yourself by thinking that it's pointless or stupid to reward yourself for the things that you're supposed to do. That couldn't be further from the truth. Are you really going to wait until something huge happens to celebrate? That's a lot of time of waiting. Because does something huge happen every single day? Probably not. But the kinds of wins that I'm talking about do. And based on the feedback that I get from the students in my program, this regular practice of celebrating their wins is changing their lives. So what's it going to be for you today? Maybe you decided to get a second opinion before just going with what one professional said, and it made all the difference. That's definitely a win. Perhaps you're working on eliminating your codependent behaviors and letting others in your life know that you're making these changes. That's certainly a win. Maybe you decided to take an inventory of your executive function skills and determine which one is your strongest skill and practice making it even stronger. That's another win. You get the point. Celebrate all of them. And none of this half-hearted celebrating. You gotta mean it. Exaggerate your emotions. Yes, wow, awesome. You want your acknowledgement and celebration to register in your physiology. Many of us need a higher level of stimulation or intensity for things to register. And if that's you, then give it to yourself and exaggerate your celebration so you can actually feel it. And whether this is your first or your 40th time of listening to my show, you're going to hear me say time and time again that you are not what you do or don't do, that you're more than that we are not defective or less than as people, as human beings. We're just wired differently, and that difference doesn't have to be a bad thing. Once you understand what activates you and how to sustain effort with the least amount of stress possible and have a lot of new tools to live your best life. And you know what? It's my hope that you're going to get some of what you need here. Today's episode, it's all about answering the questions that you have about issues or challenges that you experience as an adult living with ADHD and offering you hope, real hope. I have 3 stories for you about the challenges of prioritizing and managing yourself within time and consistent productivity, plus action steps. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast show notes, great free content from Dr. B, plus programs and services. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Now back to being an adult with ADHD in today's world. Transitioning to our first story about prioritizing. Patty never knew where to start when it was time to work on things at home. She had so much backlog of work to catch up on, and she had time set aside to do so, but when it came time to get started, she didn't know what to do first. Everything looked like a 10 and felt urgent to her, and she was afraid of making a mistake and starting on the wrong thing and wasting time, only to see afterward that she should have started on something else, and that something else would have been so obvious to her after the fact, but in the moment of needing to decide, she just couldn't see what it was. Literally, everything looked like a 10 because she couldn't differentiate between things in terms of their value. It was like trying to work with a jigsaw puzzle, and all the pieces were the same color, instead of different patterns that gave some clue as to the final picture of all those pieces. So with all of them looking the same, how could she be expected to prioritize? Patty had no idea that she was missing executive function skills that would have allowed her to see the differences in value and hence be able to easily put them into a sequence or order, starting with the most important and working her way down from there. She knew that she could easily have done that if she could only see the differences in value, but she couldn't see them. It was like all her friends and family members were talking to a blind person, and in a sense they were, as if she was apparently mind blind to seeing the differences in the value of tasks and being able to proceed with prioritizing them. And no matter what strategies or technologies she's going to try, if her senses couldn't make the connections to see the differences, then nothing was going to happen if that's the way that it was. Patty was really scared that there were many, many other things that she was also mind blind to, that she hadn't even yet learned about. How could she possibly do her life under these conditions? Pushing herself literally made her freeze up mentally, and then she was unable to do anything. And then the day passed with nothing accomplished, and Patty feeling awful about herself. A side note. Long ago, I used a system of 3 columns for prioritizing: needs, wants, and would be nice. I recognize that this system wouldn't work if one is not self-aware, which is an executive function skill, or can't make decisions of which category things need to go in, or be able to identify and then differentiate what a need is from a want and then what a would-be nice would be. It's somewhat of a primitive and superficial method that worked for me at the time to some degree, and it clearly wouldn't work for many people who tried to use it. So here's some action steps. Focus on being curious as to why you can't prioritize. What could possibly be the reason? Educate yourself about what you can and can't do, and see if you can tease out any clues that lead you to the underlying reasons. Follow through on learning whatever executive function skills that you discover that you're missing that impact your ability to prioritize, which may or may not be the skills that others need to learn for them to prioritize, since we're all internally organized just a little bit differently. Self-management on how you're feeling about discovering what you're missing and that you haven't learned it until now. I hope that what I've shared about prioritizing is a benefit to you as you sort through your own challenges with this skill set. So let's transition to our next story about managing yourself within time. Ernie was a highly esteemed scientist and researcher. He did the type of work that let him hyper-focus and get lost in his thoughts for days at a time. When the university that Ernie was working at had to size down and close out his department, Ernie was kept on, but he was moved to a different department with a different job description. He had no idea how to manage himself in time because he never had to. All throughout school and his academic and research career, he was able to escape the confines of working with time or having a relationship with time. He had assistants or associates that kept track of time for him and prompted him to make transitions when they were necessary. Sometimes they even brought food to him because he was so deeply involved in his thoughts and his research ideas. It was definitely an abrupt and radical shift for Ernie to have to be present in relationship to time and the passing of time, plus not having the associates or the assistants that he had in his previous position really made it difficult for Ernie to adjust to his new position at the university. Some of his new duties or roles had him attending meetings, contributing ideas, following up with email exchanges, and brainstorming with others as part of a team. Interacting with others on such a regular basis was not something that Ernie was accustomed to, and it was really a bad fit for him. He started to become depressed in this new position, and he was contemplating quitting the university and looking for work elsewhere. A side note, we all think of time differently. Some common expressions are, I feel like I'm constantly running out of time or chasing time. Time just feels like it's slipping through my fingers every day. Or I'm always late and I can't seem to make myself be on time for anything. Or time is seeming to move so slowly today. Long ago I realized that the idea of time management just didn't make sense. That I couldn't manage time because time is what it is. It moves at its own pace, and I have to learn to manage myself in relationship to the rhythm of time. I also recognized that I needed to stop thinking of a day as 24 hours, because to me, that would be dangerous. I started thinking of a day as 16 hours, because I had to make 8 hours sacred for my sleep. That worked much better in terms of managing myself within the 16-hour day that I actually had. So here's some action steps for you. Focus on training yourself to become aware of the passing of time. Maybe set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes and see if you can know when the alarm is going to go off before it does, and note how close you get to the actual time. Also, focus on timing how long things take you to do. Actually take you to do once you start them, after you're done procrastinating or getting yourself ready to start, or whatever you do before you actually start the task. It's important to know how long things actually take you once you get going. Follow through on using the feelings and information that you now have about experiencing the passing of time and how long things actually take you to start to be better in relationship with time. For self-management, you need to manage your feelings about your relationship with time and shifting your thoughts to time being your friend or time being on your side. Time can be a strong ally if you cultivate that type of relationship with it. I hope that what I've shared about managing yourself within time is of benefit to you as you sort through your own challenges with time and embark on developing a new relationship with time that's going to serve you moving forward. Transitioning to our final story about consistent productivity. Lou and Gus had been friends since childhood and business partners for about a year. They had some great ideas that they wanted to bring to the marketplace together, yet it just wasn't happening months later. In fact, they were both very discouraged. When they talked about going into business together, they were both so caught up in the excitement of their ideas and passion that they didn't take time to consider their respective skills and abilities to run a successful business together and how their skills would need to complement each other. So what they ended up with was two of them having the same weaknesses, and their business was going nowhere fast. Both Lou and Gus loved generating new or innovative ideas. They were both definitely idea people, and neither of them were grounded in the world of getting things done, only in generating ideas. In fact, neither one of them had ever taken an idea and done something with it, but that wasn't something they paid attention to or thought about when they decided to go into business together. When they would schedule a meeting to sit and discuss the steps that they needed to take to move their innovative ideas from dream board to the production phase, they would get derailed in their conversations and end up discussing upgrades to their original ideas and stay stuck there. They both wondered why it was so difficult for either of them to actually get things done, important things. It's not like they were sitting around all day just doing nothing, because they weren't. In fact, they were constantly busy, but busy isn't the same as being productive. For them to be productive, they would need to commit to one idea that they had generated and stay with that idea, rather than choosing a new idea again and again. They would need to map out a plan for taking that idea from just an idea to an actual product or service. That means that they would need to slow down and perhaps work backwards, step by step, to get to the starting point for the plan. They would need to have clarity on what the actual steps were that they would need to take the idea from an idea to a product or a service. When Lou and Gus started talking about what would be involved in actually taking any one of their great ideas from just an idea to an actual real thing, they both got antsy and a bit scared. They didn't know if they were actually competent enough to do this. They started to wonder what they'd gotten themselves into and how they could have even thought that they could have a business in the first place. They even hired a consultant to help them map out the steps that they needed to take to transform an idea into a service or a product. That was helpful as far as it took things. Now that they had the steps that they needed to take laid out clearly in front of them, and they still weren't taking the steps, it just seemed crazy to them. A side note, I learned a long time ago that just seeing what needs to be done or being told what needs to be done isn't enough. At least it's not enough for me. I need to know the thinking that's behind the steps and the actions, or I can't even get myself to engage and make the journey. I learned that those that are successful at being consistently productive know why they're doing what it is that they're doing, when they're doing it. There's no guesswork. They're able to talk themselves through the difficult days and keep moving forward and being consistently productive because they're able to talk to themselves and answer the questions that their mind generates about stopping or quitting or slowing down or whatever else it generates. So here's some action steps for you. Focus on what you say to yourself when it's time to get started with a task. Notice if you're encouraging, confident, ready to go after the task that you've set in front of yourself, or you're hesitant, uncertain, or unwilling to engage. Follow through with the insights and information that you gather about your self-talk, and answer the questions that your mind poses to you about its fears and concerns. Troubleshoot whatever situations are presented to you by your mind, just as if you were doing it with another person, separate from yourself. Self-management of your feelings about being consistently productive and what that means to you emotionally. Do you feel intimidated by the idea of being consistently productive as a person? Is it something that makes you feel uncomfortable in your own skin and feeling like you want to run away? Or do you feel excited and ready to engage emotionally and physically with the tasks that you have in front of you? I hope what I've shared about consistent productivity is of benefit to you as you sort through your own challenges with being productive first and then consistently productive second, as you develop the skills that you need for that to happen. So that's it for our 3 topics and 3 stories today. If this seems overwhelming and you feel like you're going to need some help developing these skills to give you that happier and more productive life, no worries. I suggest that you put your name on the wait list for my online program, Adventures in Achievement. Enrollment just closed the end of August, and I'm not planning on opening it up again until later this year. However, that could change, so be sure to get on the wait list now if you'd like to learn more about this program. I plan on recording some informative videos for those of you on the wait list so you can benefit while you're waiting for enrollment to open up again. I'm adding some exciting new content to the current program that's well worth waiting. Adventures in Achievement is definitely the place to be if you want help understanding what's been holding you back and you want to learn the skills to break free of your stuckness. A favorite quote of mine, Maya Angelou said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." The question I have for you at this point of our journey together is, are you willing to apply this to your relationship with yourself as well as to your relationship with others? I hope so. Because what you say matters, what you do matters, and who you are matters. First and foremost to yourself and the quality of your own life, and second to your relationships with others. So just wrapping up here. New episodes are released on Mondays and Thursdays, and as a subscriber, the newest episode is going to be in your feed by 1 a.m. Pacific time. Plus, you won't miss out on anything special that I create. Certainly a great reason to subscribe. Asking questions for the Ask Dr. B episode couldn't be easier now. Just click the link in the episode description on your mobile device or on my website where it says Ask Dr. B and ask away. And a bonus opportunity. You can ask Dr. B every week in the community group where I show up live for Q&A. If you want to participate and ask me questions in that group, please friend me over on Facebook and then ask to join the group, the Harness Your ADHD Power community. It's a great place to celebrate your wins and to learn from each other. And please share this podcast with your friends and family, as well as rate the show if you're finding it valuable. And if you'd like to do a little bit more, I would really be grateful if you wrote a thoughtful review on iTunes. You don't have to write anything lengthy, just a line or 2 would be great. I love hearing from you, reading your reviews, learning about your life and how the show is benefiting you and those you care about. It's an honor to accompany you on your journey and make a difference in the quality of your life. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. So that's it for today. Be sure to take advantage of all the resources that I continue to generate with you in mind. All the links are in the episode description, including the show notes, which means a PDF transcription of the episode. Every episode has that free resource. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're hungry to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com and see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with one-to-one attention and community support, or on your own with self-study, or could benefit from coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information right there at drbarbaracohen.com.